Hey YouTube, welcome back to Tinker with Tools. Tonight we're going to be talking about a brand new tool that's not actually all that new. So let's go ahead and get into that on Tinker with Tools. So when I say a tool is brand new, that's because it was just recently released in the market in which I live. It's got a new model number. It has different features from the prior generation before it. So then why isn't it all that new? Well, the one we're talking about is the brand new Makita XDT20, which was just released in the last month here in the North American market. The problem is this tool has existed as the TD173 in the Japanese and other overseas markets for almost 2 years at this point. And while this generation does bear a lot of differences ergonomically from its predecessors in the XDT16 and 19, I think whether or not it's a new tool is a little bit more nuanced than that. What I want to do is I want to talk about what is actually new, what's not so new, and then I want to do some performance testing. So first and foremost, let's talk about what is new about this tool. And I think that's really where it comes down to being more stuff that is on the outside of the tool than it is on stuff that is on the inside of the tool. And what I mean by that is most of the big differences are going to be in design and ergonomics and not so much in the function of the tool or the power and performance. Now the first one is going to be the placement of the control panel for the different modes that you can select. And that is now going to be on the back of the tool, back where the butt of your hand rests. And that is going to be a departure from just about any impact driver on the market. And this is a feature that the more you use it, I think it becomes more natural for you to go there. And there are a lot of speed modes on there, so making it more natural for you to access, I think is a win. And it's something that the more I've used the tool, I definitely have found myself liking it more. Now the second change is going to be a byproduct of that shift of the control panel, or maybe this was the change that made it so they had to move the control panel. But instead of the tool handle coming down and kind of intersecting more towards the rear of the base of the tool, the new impact is going to have it much more centered in there. It's not necessarily something that you notice this one being front heavy, but when you hold them side by side, you do definitely feel the weight of it being more directly beneath your hand versus kind of tipping your hand forward with how that battery is placed. Now the last change, and probably in my opinion the most impactful one, is going to be the light placement on this tool. And as you'll see, the light on this tool is tremendous. I've tested the Skill, I've tested the Hilti, I've tested this light. They're all good. This one is by far the brightest. And in fact, it is the brightest light that I've tested on any tool. Now let's talk about what is not new about these tools. And I think that's where it gets a little bit more interesting, something that you just don't see with many brands. That is the fact that the new tool is quoted as having 1,590 inch-pounds of torque, 3,600 RPMs, and those specs are going to be identical to the predecessor, the XDT19, and there's only one small difference between that and the XDT16. In fact, the 16, the oldest one, roughly 6 years old at this point, is 10 inch-pounds of torque higher than that of the brand new tool. Now I understand that there could be improvements to the individual modes, there could be refinements they've made, but I think as you use them back to back, you're going to be hard pressed to notice those differences. Now, like I said, the other not new thing about this impact driver is that it's really not that new to me. In fact, I have had this purple TD173, which is the Japanese model of this tool, since March of 2023. The biggest differences between the Japanese model and the brand new American model are going to be three main differences. First and foremost, the Japanese model is going to have a JIS style collet. That style of collet is deeper than your traditional standard American collet. Now that means that when you put an American bit into a JIS collet, for the most part, you'll find that it does work. You're just going to have a lot of forward and back play since the bit can recede deeper into it. I have found at times that when using an American bit in a JIS collet, sometimes the tolerances seem to be just a little bit different, and I've had bits that simply won't go into this style of collet, or I've even had them get stuck in another version of Makita impact driver before. Now the second one is that this tool is made in Japan. This one and the other two TIL impact drivers here are going to be made in China. As far as I can tell, there's no discernible difference in the function of the tool necessarily. It's within what I would call a reasonable degree of difference, but there is a difference in where they are manufactured. The last one being that you can get the Makita in Japan in various colors. This one in particular comes in purple, black, yellow, and kind of a forest green color. In all reality, I do like those colors. You can also buy it in the traditional teal, but that's something that we just don't seem to get in the American market. All right, so then we talked about what's new, what's not new, and what differs between the American and Japanese model. Now it's time to run through some performance testing, and we're going to go through 6 different tests with each of these impact drivers being the XDT16, the XDT19, and for those of you overseas, that's going to be the TD171, the TD172. Then we also have the TD173, which is the Japanese model, and then the XDT20, the brand new one. So then after this, we'll talk about the performance differences and kind of give you my opinion and conclusion about these tools. All right, so there you have it. With that performance testing, over the last 6+ years of impact driver innovation, including models both from Japan and from America or made in China, you see 1.56 seconds of difference between these tools. Now, that being said, the oldest one, the one with the most torque, technically did finish last, but the 2 newest models did not finish first. In fact, that honor goes to the XDT19. These are all pretty evenly matched in terms of performance testing. Now on the surface, those performance figures, I guess, are a conclusion. When I started editing this video, I had the performance testing from the prior week's video where I compared a bunch of different DeWalt impact drivers open, and I noticed that I had 4 test-ins similar between the 2 different weeks. So I went ahead and compared the average of the DeWalt time to the average of the Makita time, And I found that on average, the Makita took 103% longer to drive the same type of fastener. When you're comparing two different tools and one of them does something twice as fast, I think that's pretty remarkable. And over the last few years, I had another video that kind of came to mind instantly where I compared two different tools, and that was when I compared the Bosch Freak to a DeWalt impact driver and a DeWalt impact wrench. And in that video, I kind of found the same similar type of thing. The Bosch Freak was not very good at being an impact wrench in terms of power and performance, and it wasn't very good at being an impact driver as it compared to the DeWalt. And at the end of the video, I kind of made the point that it just wasn't very good at performance, and the other thing that stuck out to me is it just wasn't that nice to use, being that it was larger and heavier than a lot of the other impact drivers that it gets compared to. So then why am I talking about the Makita in a relatively positive light when I didn't really care for the Bosch? And I think that's because that doesn't seem to be the focus for Makita. In my opinion, in the world of impact drivers, there's two different camps or modes of thought when it comes to designing the tool. You have the camp that focuses mostly on power and speed and performance, and that's going to be led by the likes of Milwaukee, Flex, and now even that latest DeWalt is going to be right up there in terms of performance. And on the other hand, you have the companies that seem to focus more on the use of the tool, the ergonomics, how nice it is to use, how smooth it is, and that's where Makita, in my opinion, stands atop the rest in terms of how nice it is to use. In fact, it almost feels a little disingenuous when they mention things like industry-leading performance when we've just shown that it simply isn't the case. So then, what does that mean for these Makita tools? Well, in terms of this video, I think if you're looking for something that is truly class-leading performance, you're going to be looking at one of those other more powerful models from those other companies, and you're going to find what you're looking for, and there definitely is a place for that. But if you are someone that prefers the function of the tool in terms of how nice it is to use, the refinement of it, I don't think you're going to find a better impact driver on the market, and it seems to have stayed that way for at least the last 6 years. So then when it comes down to it, should you buy this new impact driver if you are someone who thinks like Makita does and favors how nice the tool is to use? I think that's where it's easiest to make a simple pros and cons list about the new tool as it compares to the previous impact drivers. So on the pros side, I think for the most part you do have some improved ergonomics with this tool. The handle placement does give it a little bit better balance, and the light is definitely an improvement in how it gets used. Even though these other lights weren't necessarily bad, the lights on the two newer models is definitely just going to be class leading in my opinion, and really one of the highlights of using this tool. Now we kind of get more to the cons side, and I think that's where it's worth pointing out a couple of different things. The first con is in mentioning those ergonomics. I do feel like the grip on the new TD173 or XDT20 is a slight bit smaller than what you get on, say, the 16 or the 19. Next is going to be the price of the tool. $240 bare tool pricing on the new XDT20, and then you're also looking at $399 for the standalone kit that comes with two 5 amp hour batteries. The funny thing about it is when I imported the TD173 nearly 2 years ago when it was still relatively new from Japan, it was still only $223. I can now get that same tool with basically the same function, just a different collet and a different origin of manufacturing, for $165 on eBay at the time of this filming. I can get the special colors for about $175. So I'm already coming in $70 cheaper than what I can get the brand new US model from, and that's really where it starts to become a hard sell. Where it gets even more difficult for me is both of these impact drivers we've shown still have good performance as it compares to the newer tools, and I can get those for roughly $125 to $130 US at the time of filming. So then when it comes down to the conclusion of this, I think if you're running an XDT13 or an XDT14, you know, kind of some of those older, less feature-rich models, upgrading to something like this, you are going to notice a big difference, not necessarily in performance, power, and speed, but definitely in the features and how nice it is to use. The light, for example, this is an improved impact driver. The ergonomics are going to be noticeably different. If you're using the XDT16 or especially the XDT19, I think that's where it's a lot harder to tell you to go out and buy the new impact driver unless you just want to have the latest from Makita, because really the performance difference is just not there. The modes are not there, and while the light is better and the ergonomics are a slight improvement, It's not like it's smaller, it's barely lighter. There just isn't a lot of difference between that tool. And if I can get it for half the price, it just starts to become a difficult value proposition for me. All right, so there you have it. There is my rundown of the new or newish XDT20 and kind of how I view it in the landscape of Makita impact drivers. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you have any questions, please leave them down below and let me know what you want to see next from this impact driver. Do you want to see a tour of all the different Makita impact drivers that I have? Shockingly, it's over 10 at this point. Or do you want to see this compared to other tools and kind of see how it stacks up to those other brands? Go ahead and let me know in the comments down below and we'll see what we can get done for you. As always, thank you for all the continued support. As always, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and make sure to turn on notifications so you get notified when I put out a new video. And as always, thank you for the support. Until next time, I will catch you on Tinker with Tools.